Hey, morning everyone. Uh, you're all welcome back. And today's class is going to be amazing. So where exactly did we stop? Okay. We were at authentication with sessions, and then we stop at user registration. Okay, that's great. Okay. So when I started this class earlier, I was going through our code and I discovered a mistake that is minor, but may cost us a lot. Like we're getting errors. Let's say for instance, okay, let me first of all open up Postman. Question tax manager with Express Authentication. Okay. We're still on session. Authentication with sessions. Okay. What's happening here? Okay, Postman is loading. Okay, I simply want to start our server. Okay, our server is up and running. And I want to just okay, so let's try to register. I will try to register with this same credentials, and then we'll see the kind of error we're getting. And it's taking a little bit of time because we're using the free tier. With DB Atlas, sometimes takes a little bit of time to respond. Okay, and this internet server error we're getting is it's correct. Our code is working as expected. Then let's check our middleware. We have our error handler here. Okay, this is implemented correctly. And then let's check our task. Okay, correctly. But then we have a mistake. We have an error here. It's actually a mistake because this is an object and we are creating an instance of this object. So we say throw new. Not just throw new. New. So this is what we're using out. That our code wasn't working as expected. So we'll try to make this request again now. Okay, we're still getting internet server error. Where the registration. Okay, throw new here also. They will make the request again. Okay, so now we're getting our expected output. Message user with crystal. Okay, user with username. User with username crystal already exists. Let's make the request again. Okay, user with username already exists. Okay, so we've solved that problem. So these are kind of mistakes that sometimes you make when writing code and you didn't have to handle it properly. Okay, so we've signed in and now we've assigned the user to the request session object and we tested out. We tested that earlier, I mean, in our previous class before ending the class, and we saw that the user object was added to the request session object, and that's correct. So now we'll be heading to user login. Okay, so we have a login function here. Request login is equal to async wrapper in our async object. It's a request, sorry, async function with a request response object here. And then just res send login. So we'll export our login function here. And then we'll come down to route, session route, and then we'll uncomment this. And then we'll import the login function as well. Okay, so that's all for that. So let's test it out and see if it's working. Login. Then we'll make a request. Okay, it's working as expected. We're seeing our login as our output here. So let's go ahead and implement the login functionality. Okay, so in our login function, where is it? We're getting a request, and inside of this request, we're getting our username, request body. The request body object. It's coming in with a username and a password. It's equal to request body. Okay, now so let's check if this request body is actually coming in with a username and password. We'll send the request again. I get an internet server error actually. Let's see. Okay, so why this internet server error? Login async the request. It's not request. The rec. Okay, I think that's the reason why we're getting the internet server error here. They will send the request again. Okay, we say hello. Okay, so it's working as expected now. So we check for our username and password. But for now, we'll do it manually. So what we will do is we'll say if there's no username or okay, username or there's no password, we throw a new error, custom error API of let's say, should we say provide input or input values? Let's say provide or input values like so. Okay. So let's go back here and then do something like this. and send the request again. Why is it taking so much time? Okay, something is broken. Invalid status code. Sorry. Okay, status codes, but bad request. Okay. Status. I will send the request again. So provide all input values. Okay, so it's working. So we're checking for username and password. So a user must input the username and the password before making a login request, which is a post request. So after checking for this, what next do we want to do? Okay, we want to search our database if we can find a user with that username. So if you can find a user with that username, we want to retrieve the user's password. And then what do we want to do with the password? After retrieving the user's password, we're using decrypt here. We'll compare the password, use decrypt to compare the password. Okay, so we'll say the next step, we'll say old user is equal to await database user find, I think it's should we find first or find unique? Okay, find unique, where you can use find first, you can use find unique, where username, we're using the ES6 syntaxes, the what's up? Username is not different. Username. Oh, outside of the login function. Okay, username. Since it's username here and the field in the database is username, you can just say username instead of saying username and then username. There's no need for that. We just say username. And then if there's no user in our database with this username, we say if there's no user in our database with this username, we simply want to throw a new error. Sorry, throw a new error. No, new custom error API of let's say user, or we'll say invalid credentials. Invalid, because we're trying to log in with invalid credentials. Then this is a bad request. Okay, so let's go back here and then try to log in with some kind of 1, 2, 3, and then send a request. I think we're not handling it. Okay, the user is found, but then we're not handling the request. Okay, let's see in the case where the user, let's do something like this. Let's send the request again. Okay, invalid credentials. It was looking for the username. Okay, so there's no user in our database with that username. So we'll just simply let the user know is making a request with invalid credentials. But if there's a user in our database with that username, we want to say old, okay, let's say correct password is equal to await, decrypt, compare. We want to compare the password that the user supplied, password, and the one that is in our database. You know, it's encrypted, so it's only bcrypt that can decrypt the password and then compare with the one that the user just supplied. So we say code user password hash, like so. Code user password hash, and then we check if there's no correct, if the password is not correct, then we throw a new error, custom error API of let's say C invalid credentials, because your username is correct, but then your password is not correct. So invalid credentials, which is a bad request as well. Okay, so now let's come back here. What is this? Postman, the username is correct, but then the password is not correct. So let's make a request. We don't want to say invalid username and invalid password. We don't want to do something like that. We just want to give them a general message, invalid credentials, so that they will be sure. We don't want another user stealing another user's credentials to log in. So when you say invalid credentials, they don't know if it's the username or password. So if they are sure, oh, my username is correct, so it must be the password. But if you are trying to use a user's credentials to log in, you don't know if it's the username or password, so maybe you just give up or something like that. It's a kind of trick though. Or you can say invalid password here, username here, and then invalid password here. It's up to you, but you need to be defensive in your code or something like that. Okay, so if there is, yeah, go ahead. You have a question?
Okay, good morning, sir. Please, in our last class, I remember that you installed bcrypt.js for hashing, but although I've been using a particular package called bcrypt. So
Yes.
is this the same thing with bcrypt.js?
Can you see the
Oh,
name on
dear.
my screen here? Decrypt.
Yes, but I remember when you installed it the
Yes,
other
it's
time,
Bcrypt.
it is
Bcrypt.js.
bcrypt.js.
Yes, there's Bcrypt and there's Bcrypt.js.
Okay, can we
There's
use
a,
any one of them? Or
yes, it's anyone you prefer. Yes, but you consider the performance and the general performance.
okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. There are other packages like well, I forgot to. Two other packages I can use as well, but you consider performance. Because in the case where you have a large application, you have a million of users logging and registering and logging and all like frequently, you need to consider performance. Okay? So before you build your application, you plan system design, and then you consider all of those things before you can go ahead and start building anything. Okay. So now, if the password is correct, so we want to go ahead and then, okay, in this request here, we will say select. We want to select just the username true, and then, okay, first of all, let's start with the ID. ID true, and then username true. That's why I love Prisma. Prisma, it's optimal. You will enjoy Prisma. Okay, so we've got that, and then what we want to do is we want to say response status of status codes okay JSON with a message login. Is it should I say login success or login success like this? And then, but before then, we want to also, when you log in and the request is successful, we want to say request session user is equal to old user, because as you can see, we are returning. Before we do this, let's log our old user here. Sorry, log, what am I doing? Log old user, so we can see what we are getting. We don't want to return the password. We just want to return the ID and the username, because that's what they need. The password is just used to verify the user's credentials and then sign them in. Okay, so we come here. I think my password was something like this. I can't remember anymore. Channel server error. Please compare the set password hash. So why are we getting an internal server error? Okay. We are using the defined unique. Invalid credentials. Okay. Okay. So let me just make the request like this and see. It's like there's an error here that we are not noticing. Decrypt, compare, password, valid credentials, bad request, username, password. So what's actually wrong? Okay, but we're getting our server running on for 3,000 and we're getting the user here. And let me make the request again. Channel server error. Then let's see what's here. Okay. Send the request again. Now, I think here the password is not correct. Okay, so let's make a new registration like so. Let's change this to register so we can be sure of our credentials. The registration successful. Let's change this to login. We're still getting an internet server error actually. Okay, let's remove this. Remove this as well. Comment this one. Then log it to the console. Okay. So let's send this request again. We're still getting an internet server error. Okay, let's go over our code. we are trying and so database user find unique, select this, that is working. If old user to be invalid, create your status code batch request. Correct password to decrypt, compare password, old user password hash. Okay, I think that's correct because we're comparing the password and the old user password. So what's actually wrong? Status. So let's do a kind of a manual debugging. Let's debug it manually. Log old user. True new custom error if the username password request body. Now I'll send the request again. Login success. Okay. So let's let this check this one here. This user want to log the user in. Make the request again. Login success. Okay. Let's comment this one as well. Decrypt compare. Okay. Is the function. Compare. Decrypt compare password. Then old user password. Okay. Okay. So let's just remove the select. Because we need the password to compare here. I think that's the reason why we're getting an internet server error. So now let's make this request. Okay. The login success, and this time around, we want to see our request object. Okay. User ID, username, Christopher. Okay. But we're already logged in. So request session. But what if we're logged out and then we want to log in again? There is where we assign request session is equal to function equal to, let's just make it. Let's see. Old user ID and then username. Old user username. Like so. Then let's now log request session. We don't want to return the username. We just want to return the ID and the old username. But we don't need to write this function separately. We just make it an inline function and then try to return the credentials here. So let's try this once more. This request is always taking time. Last time was 3.55 seconds. This time around it's taking longer. Break session user. Function serialize user return this. Then this. Say request session. Okay, user. Request session user. Shouldn't just be assigning it to a request station like that. To login success. Okay. Function anonymous is equal to serialize user, then old user, like so. We'll make the request again. And we have our ID and our username right now. It's still correct. It's working as expected. So let's remove this. Okay, the user table is password hash, Prisma schema, password hash. It's not password. Okay, so login success. So after checking all of this, we come here and then we assign the ID and the username to the request session. The user object to the request session, which contains ID and then the username. Okay, so actually we are logged in, but then we cannot do anything. We have to write a function that will check if a user is actually logged in. Oh, but before then, we'll create a logout function. Let's see. Const logout is equal to async wrapper, async request response. Like this. Then once you call this function, what we want to do is we want to destroy the session request session, destroy, and then the callback function of an error. And then if there's an error, let's say if there's an error while trying to log out, we want to throw a new custom error API of let's say internal server error, and then status codes internal server error, like so. But if not, then we will just redirect the user, redirect to, let's say, login. In this case, you have to communicate with the front-end developers. If their login route is login or something like log in or anyhow, but you have to communicate with them. In this case, we leave it like this, login, and then we export our logout functionality here to command like so. So we'll come down to our middleware. No, not middleware. In our route, in our session now today, we register our router gets to get request, log out. Then we call logout. So now we'll come back here to our, then we change this to a get request and then call logout here. Send. Okay. So our for route not found, because we are redirecting and we expect this route not found. Because we just logged out and then redirect user. Okay, so this is it for the logout. And then we also have, before the logout, I mean, let's say before the logout, we have another route. Const me is equal to async wrapper. Then we have async request response, like so. And then in this route, what the request that is coming in is not it's coming from the middleware. We make another middleware that's we check if a user actually exists, if the session exists. So we say const. Also we say user ID. No, let's say ID, then username is equal to request session user, like so. So if there's a request session user, we will want to fetch the user's tags and then add it to the request and then send it back to the user. So what we want to do is we want to say const task is equal to await database task find many. They will say where user ID is the ID of the user. We want to fetch only the task of that very user. Okay, so we don't come down here and then see response status of status codes. Okay, JSON object of a user, and then the user will actually be an object with the ID, username, and then tasks, the user's tasks. So they will export this one here. You know, this route is actually not necessary, but it's a best practice. So we're done with this. We'll come back to our route. Then here we'll say router get /me, and then me, like so. Okay, so before that, we'll go back to our middleware, and then we'd like to check, because before we can grant them access, we like to check. We'll create a middleware that will check if a user is actually logged in and the session contains a user object and all of that. So we'll come here and then we'll say, since we are later we're going to be implementing the token authentication with tokens. We see session auth.js, and then we need status codes here. Import status codes from status code HTTP status codes. Then we make a function, an async function like so. Then we call it session auth. Then pass in a request, a response, and a next session, a next function. And then inside of this, we try catch block. And then we say if the request session user is falsy, if the request session does not contain the user object, then what we will do is we will throw a new custom error API JS here. New custom error API of unauthorized, like so. And then we say status codes unauthorized. And then if there's an error, we'll do the same thing. If there's an error, we'll do the same thing there. Like so. Okay, then after that, if it's successful, we'll call our next function here. So now we've come down to, this is a middleware function. Come down to our routes, and inside of this main route, we say session auth. So then we import the session auth. Okay. We're not exporting it. We name this thing to session auth, like so. You export session auth. Then we'll come down to our routes, and our session auth here. Then we'll import it. So now we try to make a request. This main route. This one here is a route. It's not a router middleware, it's a route middleware because it's only specific to this route. So if you try to make a request to this main route and the user is not logged in, you will not be allowed. So let's check. Okay, let's first of all log in. Login. What's happening? Okay, post, not get. Okay, make a request. Okay, now we're logged in. Then we just change it to get. And then we'll go to main route. And then make a request again. Okay, so as you can see, we have a response of 200. We have a user, and the user has an ID of this, a username of this, and then no tasks because the user hasn't created any tasks. So as you can see, the user doesn't have any tasks. Okay, I think we should add another request and come down here. Just copy this. Later we will know how we learn how to do all these things. We'll change this to post, paste this thing here, we'll change this one to tasks, / tasks, like so. And then we'll come down to the body, change this to raw JC. And then we'll try to create a task with a title of write unit tests. And then with a description of write unit test for our server using mocha and super test, like so. Okay, let's send this request. Okay. Now I think we have to make a little modification. But if you send that request, the request will the tags will not be associated with the user, because we are not making the change here. Is the create task. For example, we find create task ID, so, and then connect. Where is the connect supposed to come from? Okay. Next. Okay. Data, new task, and then is another function about connect on the create object actually. Okay, and at this point, I think I've forgotten. That's okay. First of all, let's send this request and see first. Send internal server error. Let's save this description. Okay, the task is incoming. Then we'll send the request again. Okay. So we're getting an internal server error here because body creates data. Let's do away with this data. Say ID, user ID. Okay. So our task, well, the task has a title, description, like so, and then we have a title is the, okay, let's say the title will be a 6 syntax, and then description, and then user ID. User ID, take an object, then we'll connect. No, is it an object? I'm getting it all wrong. Connected. So how do we get a user ID? Okay, so we'll come down to our routes. Where are our routes? Task. And then we add or create. Where is the create? It's the post session, NodeJS session called JS. Like so. And then we're supposed to add this to all of this because we don't want any user to access other users' post. Add it here. Add it here as well. Then add it here as well. And then we come back to the task. And then we say, let us now log the request body. Comment this out. Log the request body. Comment this out as well. Make the post request to tasks and send the request. Check it out. Terminal. We are ready to okay. And let's go back to our middleware here. Session out. And then we want to pass in, let's say, const request user is equal to ID. Okay, or let's just say request user is equal to request session user, like so. No, I don't as using request user. Then we pass in the next with a request user, like this. Okay, so now let's go back to our tasks, and then request body, and then request user. Okay, and let's send the request once more and see something. Internal server error. That's and why are we getting an internet server error here? Request response send. Hello, create task is in request body request user. Getting an internet server error. Is there any mistake in our session? Request user. Okay, let's say request body user is equal to request session user, like so. Okay. I think we should get this right. Hello, undefined. And we're getting our undefined in our tasks. Request user is undefined, then request body should not be undefined. Send it again. Hello. Aha. Okay. And our middleware is coming right in with our title description, user with the ID and then the username. Okay, so this is what we want. Like so. So we'll comment this one, and then we'll get our user with ID and just the ID. I think like this. And then we want to do something like this. Remove this and then ID, like so. Okay, I'm getting an error right here. Description, user ID. Title description. I want to get this. Expected a comma. Where exactly? Is it here? No. Data. Let me remove all of this. This object of title description, user ID, ID. Like so. Okay. So now let's send it. We want to create a task like this. Now send the create task. Unauthorized. Okay. Can you see unauthorized? Because I think we are not logged in. So let's come back here and then change this to a login, and then make it a post request, and then send. Login success. We come back here and then send the request. Whoa! Can you see that? This is sweet. And now we have our task with this ID, this one, and this one. The ID, the task ID, the task title, and the task description completed false, and then the user ID associated with it. And that's what we want. Okay, so now let's make a request to the me route, like so. Me. Then we send. This is what we want. Can you see this one? Okay, let me expand a little bit. Expand. We have the user ID of the user and the username of the user. Then we have the tasks of the user, the task, the ID of the task, and then even the user ID here is associated with the task. Can you see the user ID ended with 5E9B1 and then 5E9B1 starts with 650C1BP. And that is sweet. And that is actually the behavior we want. And can you see the work of this middleware? Then we just take the request session user and then we assign it to the request body user, and then we pass it to the next middleware. And if I logged out and we make this request, okay, now let's come back here and then log out. Log out and then we send. Okay, now let's change this to me route and then we send again. Unauthorized. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. And it's working as expected. Okay, so now where do we place our middleware? What do we want our middleware to do for us? Can you see how we've written our middleware? We get access to the request session and user object, and there's no request. If there's no user on the request session object, we throw a new error, unauthorized, and status code unauthorized. And then, but if there's a user object on the request session object, then we assign the request body user to the request session user, and then we pass this to the next function, pass this execution to the next function, and in this case, come down here and then pass this to the get task, this one, that one. And you can test it out that if another user is logged in, and then you try to make a request with, let's say I am logged in with no tasks, and then you are not logged in and you try to make a request, well, you will not be authorized because we are different users. That's how it should work. Okay. And here the login, the register doesn't need the session out, and the logout doesn't need it as well. And then the tasks, here we have also, we'll come here and then modify some things in our task. Come here, we get the task, the user ID of ID, params ID, update task, where ID, and then user ID. We need to supply the user ID as well. And then we get here the user of ID, and then we supply it in here. Like so. Okay, let's make this ID, user ID, user ID, and then we remove this. Okay. Edit task, come to delete task, and it's the same thing. Okay, let's just copy this. This is a destruction tab here, ID, user ID, and then we come here and say user ID, like so. Because you want to only delete tasks associated to your account, and you want to only edit tasks associated to your account, create tasks, and you want all the only tasks that are associated to your account that you want to modify and then even view. So you come here ID and then user ID, like so. Title true. We only need the title here. Okay, let's just remove this. We're learning how to optimize our queries. Then we'll come up here and then we want to also get users that are only associated with our account. We say where you see user ID, and then we get this is a request query. In the request body, we have is equal to request body. Then we come in here, we have a user of a user ID. So then we come down here and we see user ID with a comma, and our this thing will work as expected. Okay, so now let's go back, then come to our tasks, and then change this to a GET request, and then send the request. Unauthorized, because we are not logged in. We logged out earlier. Then we go back, log in, then we change this to a post request, and then we send the request again. Login success. Then we'll come down here, unauthorized. So this time around, let's make the request again. Internal server error. Okay. Here, internal server error, user ID, user. So check down here. ID, user ID. It says request variance. The request body ID. Okay, it's request body. And where are we getting the task description user ID? The only thing we need in this is a user ID. We'll come down here where user ID is the ID of the task, like so. We're getting an internal server error. I think we should mistake somewhere. That's find menu where user ID user ID. Internet server error. First of all, we'll go ahead and then comment everything out. Manual debugging, because we don't have tests for this. So we log request body. Come back here. Okay, that is jump back. Then we have user ID of this is the GET request. User with ID. Let's now log the request. Sorry, request body user. The request body user should return. Let's check our console. Okay, we're having the ID and the username, and then let's check the request body user ID as well, because I know, but I just want to be sure, and then sure, but I just want to test it out. The reason why, and this is the ID. So take out this and then log user ID. Let's see. Let's make this request again. we're having the ID here. Why are we? Okay, now let's log. After logging the ID, let's check out the request query. Let's see what's returning as well. Request query this time around. Check our terminal. Oh, so the request query is actually empty. Okay, and that's why we did not, the reason why we did not supply it with anything. But the most important thing here is this. Let's pass it because that's equal to our database find tax menu where user ID, this user ID here, then getting an internet server error. And this time around, I don't know what's wrong. This is coming this out. Where user ID, still an internet server error. And let's comment this one out, and then let's go with this one. And let's check if it's working as expected. See an internet server error. And I'll get tasks response. And why is it so? Why is this so? I think the query is a completed equal to false. Then we send this query or params. Params. Params has to do with the ID. This is a query actually. Because when we come here, we get the ID, the params. This here is supposed to be from the body, not params. Okay, I think the get tasks, what we're getting here, the request query, well, bringing out the completed and then the query. Okay, let's make this request again. Something's wrong. Aha. It's very popular. So let's make sure we are doing the right thing here. Task. Remove this. Make the request again. Then we'll find a workaround about. See internet server error. Localhost 3 times less tax. Wow. Wow. Okay, let's try this one. Because I can't actually detect what the problem is, slash I want to get the post ID. Task ID. Like so. come down here, there is a slash task ID. So slash task ID. They will send a request. And this also is returning in China server error. Check this around. I think there's nothing wrong with this. Sure. Request params. Global user ID. I think it's because of that user ID that we're not passing in here in this case. So let's do something like const user. It's an ID is equal to request body. And then we see here user ID is the ID. The ID user ID. And then we just default it here. Start passing in anything. Okay, so now let's make this request again. China server error. That's cool. That's cool. MPX Prisma Studio. I think there are tasks in our database with so let's check out MongoDB Atlas. Let's check out our database and see what we've got. Why is this one taking 10? Okay, it's taking a little bit of time to load collections. Not this one. This is here. Our session. The session ID of this expires this session cookie. Original is well. Okay. Our session is in the database. Let's check our tasks. Our task, I mean. Let's see how many tasks we've got. Okay, we have a task here with no user ID. Okay, delete. Now let's come back here. Okay. Stop this. Then start it again. Let's make this request once more. Still an internet server error. Yeah. Why is this actually a problem? All right. Let's do it once more. And if it doesn't work, I think we'll debug it later. Why move ahead? Unauthorized. Okay, I think it's about to work. About to. Not really sure, but let's first of all log in. So debugging skills are very, very important, and this is where you need them, because if you want to debug manually, and it's working. So we're getting this particular task with this user ID because the user is logged in, and this is actually working right now. Then let's check the one with get all the tasks for the user. Where is it? Section of task. Come up here, user ID. That's it. This one is actually working. Okay, let's check this one out. Remove the ID. And send the request again. Then this one is still not working. And why is it so? The log user ID. Send. So come down here. We have the user ID. It's coming in as expected. Let's be aware with this. Send the request again. Still internal server error. Task find many. Okay, now let's remove this object entirely. And let's make this request. See an internal server error. So I think tasks with database task find many. So this send the request. It's default is not on Postman. It's here HTTP localhost 3/tasks. Then send internal server error. Okay, so right now, I think we have to debug this one later. This is a kind of authorization. Okay, so let's try to delete a task with a specific user ID and see what will happen. And then let's send it a request, a delete request here, the task slash. Let me get an ID. Get request to the new route. Grab this ID here, and then try to delete this task. Let's send it and see. Internal server error. Okay, so let's come back to our controllers and then our task, the delete task. And here we're supposed to be getting this from the request body and the request params. So come here, see, comes user. Then we grab the ID from the user is equal to request body, like so. And then let's make this ID of user ID. So in here we say ID user ID. Okay, that's great. So let's try deleting the task again. Then send the request. Task deleted successfully. Okay, so this is working. So what we want to do now is we want to create another task so we can try to update it and see. Put slash post, slash tasks. And then we'll come to the body. Then we'll create a task with a title of our unit test. Description of our some fun test, something like this. Okay, then let's try to create this task. I think we're logged in already. Okay, the task is created. Then let's update it, patch, and then we'll pass in the task ID. Here's the task ID slash task ID. And then we'll modify the description to testing with motion or something like that. Okay, so let's send it again. Internal server error. So let's see what's wrong with our patch, our edit function here. And this is also supposed to be coming from the request body and not request params. So we say const this is equal to request body like so. Okay, and then we'll come down here, send this request again. Still getting an internal server error. So let's check what's happening. Data update task where ID is equal to user ID. Then we're getting our ID, the user ID from the request body. Update the task. Oh, this update task. This is also supposed to be the request body. Here, like so. Then we'll remove this one. We'll make this request again. Make the request again. An internal server error again. So what's actually wrong with this editor's ID? This params, that's user ID. It's ID. User ID. Data is update task. Because, okay. Now let's first of all log the request objects. We console and see what you got. Request body. Request body. Let's send this request again. Cancel it. Come to our console. And then we've got the title, unit test, description, testing with mocha, the user with ID and username. So what's actually wrong here? Up, edit task. User ID, user ID. Task is equal to our data. It says updates where ID. Then user ID. The data is okay. Let's move this. Let's leave it here first. Where ID. User ID. This is correct. But then we are still getting an internal server error. Okay. Log update task. Let's be sure of what we're doing first. Where's our postman? undefined. Okay, it's undefined. So here we have to bring out the title and then description like this. And then we'll come down here, we'll comment this one. With data, then we have our title, and then description. Okay, so now this is supposed to work as expected. So we'll come down here, then let's send this request again. Unauthorized, it's like we're logged out. Data should come last. That's it doesn't matter the order. Prisma doesn't take care of it. It takes care of the order. So it doesn't matter who it comes, but then I think I found the solution to this problem. Okay, so now let's log in. It's like we're logged out. Post slash log in, login. Why is it taking so much time? Okay, login success. Okay, let's come down here and then let's make this request. Internet server error again. ID request params, title description, user ID, user ID. Okay. Send it again. Okay. Okay. I think what you suggested is correct. The data, then this one down here. Okay. So now we've updated it to testing with Mocha. The user ID is like this text, and the message is task updated successfully. Okay, that's correct. Thank you for that. I was thinking Prisma will handle this because it normally handles that. Okay, so the delete task is working, the update task is working, the create task is working, the get task is working, and then we're left with this get tasks, which I don't know what's wrong with it. Let's first of all comment this like this. And then we have the ID user, let's say, where user ID. Okay, let's do it once more. Let's send the request once more. Send. No, not here. Okay, I think we should send it, change it to get, and then remove this ID. And the reason why we're getting all these errors because we actually, this is part of planning. We actually did not plan our project before building it. And we implemented that, we came, okay. So now it's working. Okay, so I think I know what the problem is. Okay, so we'll come down here. Then we'll do something like this. We will do something like all right, or just an array, and then we had an object of a title with a query, and then we had another object of a completed, which is a comp, like so. Okay, so now let's send this request again. Internet server error, and I know the reason why is we have an or. Title, the query is not coming, the completed is not coming. So let's go back to Postman here, and then the params. Let's see, Q is equal to testing and completed is equal to false. And then let's send it again. Okay. So due to the fact that we were not passing in all of this, was giving us an error. So we have to handle this thing here. See where or, and then we'll remove this entirely. Then we'll write come here. See. So you say query is equal to Q or completed. Drop this in. But we say this here like this. Then we say no. Okay. Like this. Oh. So now we come down here. You see, pass in the query. Okay, so let's try it once more. General server error. This is done like this. Or, and in the or, see if there's a query, and then this, or if there's no query, they are empty objects. Okay. So I think let's try that one out as well. We've wasted much of our time today on debugging, and we shouldn't regret it because it is part of our process where sometimes array, then passing an array of title. Or title query, like so. And then what we want to do here, we want to see if there's a query, like so, or should come in the or. You know what? I think something like this. Let's see if we get an internet server error. Again. Okay, tasks, empty tasks. Title, query, and what do we have in there? We have testing. Yeah, then let's say test. Let's pass in the test because this one pass in the tests like so. Send this request again. And guess by getting an internet server error. Okay, so let's just remove this. By the way, we are getting to the pagination, and then we still explore pagination and query. I was still getting an internet server error. We removed it. Don't worry. It's That's why I was getting an error there. Then we say this, come down here. So we see all the now let's send this request one more time. And completed is equal to false. That's Q squared destiny. Let's remove this. It's completed and not completed. Okay. So now let's pass in our Q equal to tests. Sorry, completed equal to false. So the fault was from us. It means that we don't have, anytime we don't pass the completed, we have an undefined here. And then we are trying to pass a JSON, an undefined from this JSON object, which is not supposed to be so. So what we do is say, let's complete it. So if we have the completed, which is coming from the request query, and then we say completed is equal to JSON pass completed. But if you don't have it, then we just pass in an undefined, and then Prisma will handle it for us. And then we'll come back here and then add another object. Let's make sure this one is working. Title of query, like so. So let's send this request again. Unauthorized. We're logged out. Let's log in again. We were logged in now. And let's make this request again. Okay, so we have it's working as expected, and this is sweet. I think we've seen how to debug this to the last point. Actually, we're having errors, but then we see how we made away with the errors, and then everything is working as expected. Okay, so that's it for session auth. Okay, so in review, what we did was actually start with our index.js. We created our session, and then we created where to save our session actually. And then we connected our Mongo, our database, and then our database URL. Then we created a collection name of session, and then session options, KCTM session, then the secret, session secrets. The reserve is false, and this the environment. If it's in production, and then the secure should be true, which is HTTPS, and then maximum age to be 60 times 24/7. That's about 7 days. And then the store is the Mongo store that we specified up here. And it was in our session, we implemented the register where you will register, and then if your credentials are correct, we checked for the user input. We made sure we have not less than 5 characters of the username, 6 characters of the password characters, and then we say old user code database user find price to where username. So if there's an old user, say user with username so already exists. If not, we say if so, we send back a request status code of 500, which is a bad request. It's 500, right? No, 400. Sorry, this is a bad request. And then password hash, we encrypt this password with random characters of 10 and 10 random characters, and then we save it to our database with username and password hash. And then we want to return only the ID and the username so that we sign our session. We assign this request session with this, we attach it to the request session. The user object, we add it to the request session, and then we send a message with 201 to the user, registration success. And then we come back to the main route. This is session and not session. Mistake right there. So we come back to the main route. And then we We make a request. Once we are logged in, that's it. Now we can make a request to our main route here, so where we will get all our tags, our ID, and our username. So now the front-end developer will actually make a request to this main route to get access to the tags, the user's information, and every other thing. Find anywhere user ID so and then request this and that, so that in subsequent requests, the user can delete, edit, and then do whatsoever he or she wants to do with that. So we created a middleware to check if a user exists. So before you can be able to do anything like delete or access the main route, you will have to pass through this middleware where we check if the request session user, if the user is attached to the request session, and if there's no user on the request session object, we'll simply throw a new custom error API which is unauthorized. Then we send back the status code of that's 401 unauthorized. Then we attach the request, the user to the request body, and then we send it to the next function. Then we make use of that to make subsequent requests. And this here is very, very important. You can even make it strictly like you want to, in a situation where you want users to pay before accessing, you make payments and then access all kind of records here first. Then in the database, the user will have his paid ID and everything. Then you check if the paid is valid or every other thing before you authorize the user. And this is authorization that we were talking about. Okay, so I think that's all for session authentication. And then we implemented the logout. And this logout, once you send, it's a GET request. Once you send a GET request, the request session will destroy the session. And then if there's an error in the process of destroying the session, we'll send back an internet server error status code of 500 and we will redirect to login. But if there's no error, we will simply redirect to login, like so. We log the user out, destroy the session, then we will redirect to login. Okay, so that's it for that. Then let's come back here and then let's change to get, and then change to log out. Send this request. Route not found. Log out and redirected the user. That's sweet. Okay, so now let's come back to our database. Please refresh. This is our session. Okay. Last session. And ID this expires 11:54:40 21st. I don't know, maybe it's midnight or something like that. Okay, but that is that for that. And then the next line is our authentication with tokens. You know, before we go to that, we don't have enough time, but then I will introduce it and then we kickstart. Then in our next class, we finish it up. Before we go to that, there are some teams or some organizations that, first of all, you will sit and decide which method is more secured. Is it the authentication with the session or the authentication with tokens, which is more secured? And then you decide on which method to go with. But before deciding, we have full stack frameworks like Remix Run, which is built on top of React.js. And then we have Next.js, which is also built on top of React.js. And these two frameworks, though actually you can use token and then session authentication both in Remix, and then you can do that as well in Next.js. But in Next.js, if you are not using the server, the Next.js server, it's actually good to go along with the token authentication, where you make your request, and then when you are logged in, they will send back a token where you use to make your subsequent request. But then if you're using sessions authentication, where everything is handled on the server, you don't have access to your tokens on the client side. You only have access to them on the server side. So that's where if you're using the Next.js server, you use sessions to authenticate users. But if you're using Remix, Remix is more of the server side, and then using tokens is not that ideal. But sessions is advisable, and I love Remix because everything is handled on the server. Before your UI will be updated, everything will be updated on the server, and then your UI will be updated as well. So you don't need to worry about, and that makes apps built with Remix more faster. And then their Remix is even faster than Next.js. Yes. So that's it for that. So now maybe you might have come across token authentication or session, but you don't actually know what's happening behind the hood. And so this is actually what's happening behind, under the hood and behind the scene. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to move over to the controllers, the token authentication. Then what we will do is we come here, we copy everything here, and then bring it to this token auth, like so. Then we paste it, and then in pasting will come up here, our database, everything will remain the same as it is. Everything will remain the same, and then the password hashing will remain the same, and all of this will remain the same. But after hashing your password and then creating the user, it's a kind of we'll remove this one here, like so, and then we'll come down here, we'll remove this one. Okay. Then let's finish this up by coming to the token auth. Come here, make it more faster. We copy everything here, and then we bring it down here. Then we paste it. Then we do away with this one. We do away with these ones. And then we do away with the logout, because there's no logout in the token authentication. That will be handled automatically on the client side. Okay, so we have the register, the login, and the mean. And then this will also do away with this. Okay, so we come to our index. I think we already handled this in our index file. Okay, copy this, paste it here. We'll say token / token auth. Then we come here and say token auth, like so. Okay, so crash. Okay, we don't have our token auth. Okay, we say import token auth from route. No. Like this. No. Routes / token auth.js. Like so. It's the crashing token auth. Does not provide an export default token auth. Export default router. What is this one saying again? Save this one first. Then you come here and then you save this one as well. That should work perfectly. Okay, now we'll come back to our session auth, sorry, our token auth. Then we have our login register. We'll come down to our controllers. This is the same thing as what we previously did when we were implementing our session authentication. So we don't need to go over and rewrite everything. What we just want to do is we'll remove this logout here. Then we'll remove this logout here as well. Machine and saying what is register is not defined. And where is that token about the route? So we import it automatically from the token auth.js. And then login automatically from the token auth, and then the near routes as well. token out like so. Okay. So now what do we really need to do? Okay. So what we will do now is what we did in our session is after this, we save the user to the database, and then we added the user object to the request session. Okay. So, but that's not what we want to do here. We want to create a token and then send it to the user. So how do we go about this? Okay. We'll go about this. We have first of all install JC web token, npm I JC web token. I think it's like this. Okay, let's try it. Let's give it a try. JC web token. Okay, so we've successfully installed a JC web token. So now we import JWT from JC web token, like so. So after find the user from our database, user with username already exists, and then password bcrypt hash password, and then we want to sign the user in our session notes here. Let's take this out and bring it here, in here, like so. But then we are not going to explain in details how JWT work. You head over to their website and then you check out their documentation, and maybe in our next class we will check out how JWT actually works, how it signs the headers, the body of the request, and every other details we may want to know. So now that we've checked everything, we want to create a token. Okay, so we want to see const token is equal to await JWT sign. And the sign, it takes about three or four objects or so. Okay, what we want to sign is the password. This is the password actually. We want to sign the user, the objects here. So what do we need to sign here here actually? We want to sign ID of the user user.id, user ID, and then username username. Okay, so and what information do we need to send? That's all. And then we need a secret. I think we don't need any await here. JWT. Remove the await. Okay, come here. We need a secret like. And then it's a private. Okay, let's see. Our secret is a const secret is equal to process env session secret. Let's just use the session secret. We don't need to go back and then create another secret. So we come down here And then we see where is it. And then we say secret. It's here. It says secret. It's actually a string. So no options. Where is this showing? Let's just put in our session, our secret, like this. And then we'll come down here. And then we see expires in it's another object. Command object expires in this is 7 days. You can make it like this, or you can make it in seconds or so. Anyhow you want to do it. It expires in 7 days. And now we want to send our token. We want to send the token to the user. Okay, so now we say token and then the message. Okay. This is the registration process. Everything here is the same, but look at what we're doing. After saving the user to the password and then hashing the password, they will come down here, they will say constitute the JW sign. We want to sign this and then we pass in the secret. Just like we pass a secret to the session and the session here. So JWT will use this secret to sign this user so that in our subsequent requests, JWT will decrypt the user details. So we'll come down to, let's test this out and see. We have register, but then this is a token out. And then we have a post. The body. Let me just take this down. Christopher, and then password. Okay, so let's check this out. Okay, this it's breaking. Let's check our terminal here and see. Okay, npm run dev. We will start up as our terminal. So now we're good to go. Let's make this request once more. You said we're using it. Okay, we already have this in our database, and that's sweet. And then let's see, like this. Now we'll send this request. We're having an internet server error. Decrypt hash this database images. Okay, so what's all about that internet server error created token? Okay, first of all, comment this out, and then let's log. Let's show what you're doing first, step by step. So it again. Okay, so the user created, but then the error came from the token creation. So boom, and then let's send it again. Internet server error. Okay, yes, token out register. Okay, so let's trace this a little bit. Register, we'll come to our route, token out, register, and it's coming from the controller's token out. Okay, that's correct. Then we come to our index. We have our token outs. Token outs here. Okay. Token out from routes like token out JS. controllers you have to use. Remove these objects. I think this is where the error is coming from. And then just make it a secret like this with no objects. Okay, so now let's send this request again and see what we've got. Now let's make this a boom boom, and then we'll send it like this. It's taking a bit of time. Okay, we're not handling it. So let's cancel it and change back. Whoa, we have our token. We have the headers, the algorithm down here, and then our payload. This first thing before the dot here is the header. It contains the headers. This one here is the payload, and the last one here is the what should I call it? Something. Okay. Like this. So now we've got this. Okay, so now let's go back to our database and then do a little bit of cleanup, because we've created an open like 2 times. I want to remove this. So now we'll come back to, now we logged out, and then we don't have any session because we logged out. This is the session. Come to the user here. We have some open in our database. Let's delete this people here. And then another one down here. Okay. And even this one. In fact, we delete everything. This one. Then let's leave this so that we can use it to test it out. Let's delete this one. Then we'll see if you send a request. The user with username says already exists. Okay, so now let's use Crystal. The same password. Send to Crystal. Wow, wow, wow. And now we are having our token. We have our token here, and then message registration successful. Okay, so we've succeeded in implementing registration with tokens. We've registered this user, and then we've sent the token to the front end. We've sent the token to the client. Let me see the client. So we're using an object here. That's the reason why we're getting an error. So we've signed ID, user ID, username. So the payload here will contain the user ID. Then the secret we use to sign is user ID and username, and then it expires in 7 days. In the headers will contain the remaining. So in our next class, we will learn how to also log a user in with tokens, and then you will see how we'll come to our middleware, and this session out, it will be very, very different in tokens, because there's a thorough checkup in tokens before we can allow the user to access anything. But then if you have any question, you can go ahead and ask. Okay, so if there are no questions, we've come to the end of today's class. And I will urge everyone to pay attention, because from next week, I'll be giving you tasks. And these tasks will be kind of tough. So if you are taking our classes for granted, or if you're not following up, then that's where we have a problem, because no mercy. Thank you all, and I will see you all in our next class.